So much for living a quiet life with his wife and kids. Tony Bellew says he is tempted to come out of retirement at the age of 40 to take on WBC Bridgerweight champion Lucas Rozansky, the guy who just beat Alan Babbage a few months ago. Now, Bellew says he would destroy Rozansky, pulverize him. Perhaps when Bellew was active, and he hasn't fought since his knockout defeat to Alexander Usyk 5 years ago. Back then, I think Bellew would be a pretty big favorite with most people. Although saying that, I would still give Rozansky a chance, even against the prime Tony Bellew, because Rozansky can punch. He's a naturally heavier man than Tony Bellew. And despite his lack of an extensive amateur career and relatively few pro fights, Rozansky has good fighting instincts. I mean, when he fought Artur Spilka, his countryman, he got dropped in that fight and he got off the canvas to take Spilka out in the very same round. Now, obviously, it's not good that he's getting dropped by people like Artur Spilka, but the way he responded in that situation mentally is what you want to see from a fighter. Now, obviously, some fighters, or in some cases, should I say, when you respond aggressively like that, it can backfire in terrible fashion. But I'm just talking about the mindset when he's in a crisis, when he's been dropped. He didn't panic. He didn't go into his shell and start feeling sorry for himself, because some fighters do that. He got off the canvas and put it on Spilka and took him out. And that shows good fighting instincts and a defiant, fighting heart. So I'd give Rozansky a shot against even a prime Tony Bellew. I'd probably make Bellew the favorite, but nevertheless, I'd give him a shot. However, at 40 years of age, Tony Bellew coming out of retirement, 5 years off, Father Time is undefeated. Time waits for no man, the old cliches and adages. But it's really true, because in a sport like boxing, not only does Father Time erode your skills, it erodes your stamina, it erodes your reflexes, but most crucially, especially at the age of 40, it erodes your punch resistance. Most fighters just cannot take the same kind of shot at 40 when they've been out the ring for 5 years that they could take when they were in their early 30s or in their 20s. I remember when Sugar Ray Leonard was talking about one of his comebacks, and he said that he trained for something like a year before he even sparred. And when he did spar, he just couldn't take the punches. He was surprised. It's like in his mind, he was still thinking of himself as a much younger man. And so when he went in there were certain shots he saw coming, and he was like, oh, I can take a jab. I can take a solid jab off this guy. Shots he could take easily before were hurting him. He get hit with a solid jab, all of a sudden his legs are gone. And he's thinking, what on earth is going on? Like, I could take these shots for fun when I was a younger man. Now they're making my legs go. I don't understand it. My body's not cooperating. That's what happens when you've been out the ring a long time and you're an older fighter in many instances. Now, obviously, people are going to talk about George Foreman. When Foreman came back, he had a great chin. But George Foreman took it very, very slow when he came back. For those of you who don't know, Foreman was out the ring for a decade, right? Very, very long. I mean, Foreman not only was the oldest heavyweight champion in history, but surely he's got the record for the longest layoff and then becoming champion afterwards as well. Is there anyone else who's taken a 10-year hiatus from the ring, professional boxing ring, and then come back to become world champion in their 40s as well? It's crazy. But yeah, Foreman was very, very careful in his comeback. Even with picking his sparring partners, he didn't want to spar anybody too tough in the early days of his comeback. I think he used to joke about sparring his postman and stuff like that, because the press sometimes either got wind of what was going on in his camps, or maybe they had access to his camps, I don't know. But they used to joke about how poor his sparring partners were in the early days of his comeback. And I think George Foreman even said he'd spar with his grandmother. And he must have had, 10 easy opponents, absolute knockover jobs, the lowest level of cream puff pudding you could imagine. That's who Foreman was fighting. And then they gradually stepped it up. So again, he became accustomed over time to taking the shots again. And George Foreman, of course, was always a tremendously physically strong man in his prime. He was a bulldozer. I mean, who ever matched George Foreman for physical strength in a boxing ring? We never saw it. There was nobody that could match him for physical strength. There were guys he fought who could punch, who could hurt him, like Ron Lyle, but they never matched his physical strength. And obviously, just because you're physically strong, it doesn't mean you can take a shot. There are some guys who are real strong, can't take a shot at all. But Foreman was just a robust human being, Really dense bones, I would imagine, because he was so heavy-handed yet slow. Real solid chin and tremendous physical strength. You put all that together, this is not your average heavyweight. All right, George Foreman. So just because he was able to do it, he's the exception rather than the rule because of all these attributes he had. So anyway, getting back onto Tony Bellew, thinking about coming back against Rosansky. It's obviously very risky. He says he wants to come back to see if he can become a two-weight world champion. Obviously, there's now this bridgerweight division. He says he couldn't make cruiserweight comfortably, but he thinks he could make bridgerweight very comfortably. And one of the things that has given him the boxing bug again was when he was in Creed, training for that film. He was with some S&C guy who got him into tremendous condition, and he saw abs and all this kind of thing. And he was obviously doing a certain amount of boxing training. And that's when he started thinking, you know what? Since I got through this brutal S&C training with this guy, and obviously boxing training as well, since I got through that, maybe I can actually make a comeback. Maybe my body is still intact enough and my reflexes and athleticism is still intact enough to actually beat someone like Rosansky. So that's where it's coming from. And he says he's not coming back for the money. It's just about being a two-weight world champion. So he's coming back for the glory. And again, going back to what I said earlier on in the video, Bellew said that he would disappear off into the sunset. You never see me again, Cougs. You remember all that when he retired after the Usyk fight? Yeah, Tony Bellew likes the limelight, clearly. And it is what it is. Many fighters like the limelight. They get addicted to the limelight. So Tony Bellew was, I guess, lying to himself when he thought he could just go off and live the quiet life. He can't. He needs to be in the spotlight around boxing, so on and so forth. And now he's thinking about actually stepping back in the ring. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below. Would this be a terrible idea by Tony Bellew? Would it end in disaster? Now, just having a look at Lucas Rosansky here, for those of you who are not too familiar with him. Polish fighter, 6'1", 74-inch reach, which I think is the same reach as Bellew. Yeah, a couple of inches shorter. He is 15-0, 14 KOs. No spring chicken himself. He's 37. So 3 years younger than Bellew, but like I say, activity. Lucas Rosansky is an active fighter who's been in there in real fights where he's been getting hit, where he's been getting hurt and having to come back and take his opposition out. If you look at his weight here, he's fluctuated between 200 and, well, what's his lightest weight? His lightest weight actually might have been, it was for the Babic fight. That's interesting. So he really took Babic very, very seriously indeed, because that was the lightest weight of his career. 222 pounds against Babic and 223 against Spilka. So he took that seriously as well. Prior to that, he was in the 230s and the 240s. So he's really got his weight down in the past two fights. And interestingly, the Spilka fight was in 2021. The Babic fight was 2 years later. So he had 2 years out the ring, but came back in even better shape than when he fought Spilka. So I guess that shows his mentality. Yeah, I think that as of right now, you really don't know what you would get with Tony Bellew coming back 5 years out the ring, 40 years of age. Yes, he has the skills to beat Rosansky, but there's a very good chance Rosansky is going to hit Bellew with something big, either in the body or in the head. And how's Tony Bellew's 40-year-old body and 40-year-old brain going to react to that? You just don't know. It's all up in the air. If Bellew came back and fought a couple of puddings first, got the feel of it, knocked a couple guys out, he'd maybe be less concerned about his welfare going in there against Rosansky. But as it stands, I would be kind of concerned, to be honest with you. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll leave it there. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.